Top 10 Most Shocking Band Breakups. What happens when the music that brought millions of people together becomes the very thing that tears a band apart? Behind some of rock's greatest hits are arguments, egos, creative battles, betrayals, and heartbreaking goodbyes. These are 10 band breakups that shocked the music world, and the final one still hurts. Some bands seemed destined to last forever. The chemistry was undeniable, the music was huge, and fans believed nothing could stop them. But behind the scenes, tensions were growing. Then came the announcement nobody wanted to hear. It was over. Success doesn't always keep a band together. After years of recording, touring, and making music history, cracks began appearing between the members. What started as creative differences eventually became something much bigger. How could they split after achieving so much? Sometimes, the breakup isn't peaceful. Personal conflicts collide with musical ambitions, and relationships that once seemed unbreakable begin to collapse. The saddest part? Millions of fans are watching it happen in real time. Then there's the band that had everything: fame, hit records, legendary performances, and an army of loyal fans. So you think you can tell? But one decision changed everything. Suddenly, the future was uncertain, and rumors exploded. Was it really the end? Years of pressure, relentless touring, money, personalities, and creative differences can turn friends into rivals. And when the final announcement came, fans were left stunned. The music was still powerful, but the relationship was broken. Imagine growing up with a band, watching them create the soundtrack to your life, and then suddenly hearing that there will be no more albums, no more tours, and no more moments together, just memories. Some breakups become bigger than the music itself. Everyone has a theory, everyone has an opinion, and depending on which member you believe, there can be completely different stories about what really happened. Then come the breakups that are genuinely heartbreaking. These musicians created something millions of people loved, but somewhere along the way, the relationships couldn't survive. The songs remained legendary, but the partnership was finished. Before we reveal the most shocking breakup, I want to hear from you. Which band breakup hurt you the most? Drop the name in the comments, and if your favorite isn't here, tell us why, because your answer could inspire our next video. And finally, we reached the breakup that felt like the end of an era. A band that seemed almost unstoppable suddenly reached the point of no return. The music survived, the memories survived, but the band didn't. Some bands break up, some reunite, and some become legends, precisely because they ended when they did. Subscribe and join our rock community. And tell me below, which breakup should never have happened? Top 10 Most Shocking Band Breakups. At number 10, The Clash. Imagine being one of the most important punk bands in history. Selling millions of records, changing the sound of rock, and then watching everything collapse from the inside. This wasn't just a band breaking up. It was creative tension, personal conflict, lineup changes, and a battle over what The Clash should become. At number 10 on our countdown of the most shocking band breakups, The Clash. And the strangest part? They were already falling apart while their music was still evolving. The Clash exploded onto Britain's punk scene in the late 1970s with an energy that felt impossible to contain. Joe Strummer, Mick Jones. Paul Simonon, Topper Headon. Together, they became much more than a punk band. They mixed punk with reggae, rockabilly, funk, ska, and other influences, proving that punk didn't have to stay trapped inside one musical box. Albums like London Calling turned the Clash into one of the most important bands of their generation. But success brought pressure, and behind the scenes, tensions were growing. The relationship between Joe Strummer and Mick Jones became increasingly difficult. Jones and Strummer didn't always agree on the band's musical direction, and while the band was expanding creatively, internal disagreements were becoming harder to control. Then came another major problem. Topper Headon's drug addiction became increasingly destructive, eventually contributing to his dismissal from the band in 1982. The lineup was changing, the chemistry was changing, and the Clash that fans had fallen in love with was slowly disappearing. Then, Mick Jones was fired in 1983. For many fans, that was the moment the heart of the Clash had been ripped out. Strummer continued with a new lineup, and the band released Cut the Crap in 1985. But the album was poorly received, and the end was approaching. Later that year, Joe Strummer announced that the Clash had broken up. After everything they'd accomplished, one of punk's most influential bands was finished. But here's what makes the breakup so fascinating. They weren't running out of ideas. They were still capable of creating ambitious music. The problem was that the people making it could no longer agree on where to take it. And that's one of the cruelest realities of being in a successful band. You can have chemistry on stage, and completely different visions behind the curtain. The Clash left behind a legacy that became even larger after their breakup. London Calling became a landmark album. Their songs continued influencing generations of musicians. And their political attitude became part of rock's DNA. But fans still wonder, what could the Clash have accomplished if Strummer, Jones, Simonon, and Headon had managed to stay together? Would they have created another masterpiece? Would they have evolved into something completely different? We'll never know, because sometimes bands don't end because the music stops. They end because the people making the music can't keep moving in the same direction. Now I want your opinion. Was breaking up the right decision for the Clash, or did rock lose something incredible when this lineup fell apart? And which Clash album is your favorite? Tell us below. Like, share, and subscribe for more stories about the bands that changed rock history. We're only at number 10, and the next breakup involves a band whose success couldn't prevent its members from walking away. Keep watching. The biggest breakups are still coming. Top 10 most shocking band breakups. At number 9, R.E.M. Imagine being one of the biggest alternative rock bands in the world. Selling millions of albums, filling arenas, and then, at the height of your legacy, deciding, we're done. No explosive public feud, no dramatic farewell tour, just 4 musicians who had spent decades together, deciding it was time to walk away. At number 9 on our countdown of the most shocking band breakups, R.E.M. And their breakup proved something shocking. Sometimes a band doesn't have to hate each other to end. R.E.M. formed in Athens, Georgia in 1980, bringing together Michael Stipe, Peter Buck, Mike Mills, and Bill Berry. Over the next 3 decades, they went from underground college radio favorites to one of the most influential alternative rock bands on the planet. Songs like Losing My Religion, Everybody Hurts, Man on the Moon, and The One I Love became part of rock history. Then came a moment that could have ended everything much earlier. In 1997, drummer Bill Berry suffered a brain aneurysm on stage during a concert in Switzerland. He survived. But after the experience, Berry eventually decided that he wanted to leave the touring life behind. And here's what makes R.E.M. different. The band didn't replace him. Stipe, Buck, and Mills continued as a three-piece. They could have simply carried on indefinitely, but something had changed. The chemistry was different. The touring pressure was different, and after years of recording and performing together, the members eventually reached a point where they knew the story was coming to an end. Then, on September 21, 2011, R.E.M. announced that they were breaking up. And there was no massive fight, no bitter legal war, no reunion tour announcement waiting around the corner. They simply decided that they had achieved what they wanted to achieve. For fans, it was almost difficult to believe. Because R.E.M. wasn't a band people expected to suddenly disappear. They had survived changing musical trends. They had survived Berry's departure. They had continued making records. They had built a career spanning more than 30 years. And then, they stopped. Michael Stipe later explained that the band wanted to leave on their own terms, rather than continue until the music no longer felt right. That's a rare kind of breakup in rock. Most legendary bands end with accusations, arguments, money disputes, or somebody storming off stage. R.E.M. chose something completely different. They walked away while they still had the choice. And that decision created one of the biggest questions for their fans. Could R.E.M. ever reunite? For years, fans have hoped for it, but the members have repeatedly indicated that the band is finished. And maybe that's what makes the breakup so powerful. R.E.M. didn't need a dramatic ending. Their legacy was already complete. They left behind an enormous catalog that influenced alternative rock, indie music, and generations of musicians. But they also left fans with something every music lover understands: the feeling that there was still more music they could have made. Sometimes the most shocking breakup isn't the one caused by hatred. It's the one where everyone simply realizes, it's time. Now I want to hear from you. It's the end of the world as we know it. Did R.E.M. make the right decision by ending when they did? Or should they have kept going? And what's the one R.E.M. song you could never get tired of hearing? Drop your answer below. Like, share, and subscribe for more legendary rock stories. We're only at number 9, and the next breakup involves a band whose members helped define an entire generation of rock. Keep watching. The tension is about to get much higher. Top 10 most shocking band breakups. At number 8, The Smiths. Imagine a band becoming one of the most influential groups of its generation. Creating songs that fans still obsess over decades later. And then, suddenly, one of the key members walks away. No final album together. No proper goodbye. And a relationship that once produced extraordinary music becomes impossible to repair. At number 8 on our countdown of the most shocking band breakups, The Smiths. And their breakup wasn't just the end of a band. It was the collapse of one of rock's most fascinating creative partnerships. Formed in Manchester in 1982, the Smiths brought together two personalities who seemed almost perfectly designed to create something unforgettable. Morrissey and Johnny Marr. Add Andy Rourke and Mike Joyce, and the chemistry was extraordinary. Marr supplied the shimmering, instantly recognizable guitar work. Morrissey delivered lyrics filled with loneliness, romance, alienation, humor, and controversy. Together, they created songs that sounded completely different from the mainstream rock of the era. This charming man, How Soon Is Now, There Is a Light That Never Goes Out, and The Queen Is Dead. The Smiths became enormously influential. But behind the music, tensions were growing. Marr wanted the band to keep developing musically. Morrissey had his own artistic and personal vision, and the pressure surrounding the band was becoming increasingly difficult. Then came a crucial moment. In 1987, Johnny Marr left the Smiths. The partnership that had produced some of the most distinctive music of the 1980s was suddenly over. And for fans, it was devastating. Because this wasn't a band that had simply run out of ideas. They were still creatively powerful. They had momentum. They had an audience. And yet the relationship at the center of the band had broken down. The Smiths released their final studio album, Strange Ways, Here We Come, after Marr's departure, but the group itself was finished. And that's what makes their breakup so fascinating. Morrissey and Marr had created something that seemed almost impossible to duplicate. Marr's guitar could sound bright, beautiful, and melancholic at the same time. Morrissey's voice and lyrics gave those melodies an emotional identity. Remove either one, and the Smiths were no longer the Smiths. Over the years, fans repeatedly hoped the two would reunite. But despite enormous interest, a full Smiths reunion never happened. And that absence only made the band's legend grow. Think about what they might have created if they'd stayed together for another 5 or 10 years. Would they have embraced new musical styles? Would they have become even bigger? Could they have influenced the alternative rock explosion of the 1990s from inside the scene rather than from the shadows? We'll never know. Instead, the Smiths left behind a relatively small catalog that became enormous in influence. Their songs continued reaching new generations. Their albums continued being rediscovered. And their breakup became part of their mythology. Sometimes the most frustrating band breakup isn't one caused by a lack of talent. It's the opposite. It's knowing the talent was still there and wondering what could have happened next. Now it's your turn. Was Johnny Marr right to leave the Smiths, or should they have fought harder to stay together? And what's the one Smiths song you think perfectly captures their magic? Tell us below. Like, share, and subscribe for more legendary rock stories. We're moving closer to number 1. And the next breakup involves a band whose internal battles became almost as legendary as its music. Keep watching. The biggest explosions are still ahead. Top 10 most shocking band breakups. At number 7, Genesis. What happens when the voice and face of a band decides to walk away? While the band itself is still at the top of its game. For most groups, that would be the end. But Genesis did something almost nobody expected. Their frontman left, and somehow, the band became even bigger. At number 7 on our countdown of the most shocking band breakups. Genesis, and the departure of Peter Gabriel. In the early 1970s, Genesis wasn't just another rock band. They were creating elaborate, theatrical progressive rock, filled with unusual stories, complex arrangements, and ambitious performances. At the center was Peter Gabriel. With his theatrical costumes, strange characters, and dramatic stage presence, Gabriel transformed Genesis concerts into something closer to theater. But success came with pressure. The band's music was becoming increasingly ambitious, and the demands of touring and recording were intense. Gabriel was also dealing with major personal changes, including the birth of his first child. Then came the decision that shocked Genesis fans. In 1975, Peter Gabriel announced that he was leaving the band. For many people, this seemed impossible. How could Genesis continue without the man who had become its defining frontman? The obvious answer seemed to be, they couldn't. But Genesis refused to disappear. Instead, the remaining members searched for a new direction. And eventually, something remarkable happened. Phil Collins stepped forward as the lead singer. The drummer became the frontman. At first, many fans were skeptical. How could anyone replace Peter Gabriel? But Genesis didn't try to become the old Genesis. They evolved. Albums like A Trick of the Tail and Wind and Wuthering showed that the band could survive without Gabriel. And eventually, Genesis moved toward a more accessible sound. By the 1980s, they were becoming a massive commercial force. Then came Invisible Touch. Suddenly, the band that many people thought had been finished was producing enormous international hits. And that creates one of the most fascinating what-ifs in rock history. What if Peter Gabriel had never left? Would Genesis have become one of the biggest bands of the 1980s? Would Gabriel's theatrical style have continued evolving with the band? Would the music have become even more progressive? Or would Genesis have eventually collapsed under the weight of its own ambitions? We'll never know. But Gabriel's departure created two separate musical legacies. There was Genesis with Gabriel, and there was Genesis with Collins. Both became hugely influential. Both developed passionate fan bases, and both produced music that continues to be debated today. That's what makes this breakup so unusual. Peter Gabriel didn't simply leave a band. He left behind a band that proved it could survive without him. And Genesis didn't simply replace its singer. It reinvented itself. Now I want to hear from you. Which Genesis era do you prefer? Peter Gabriel or Phil Collins? And be honest, could Genesis ever have become as successful with Gabriel still in the band? Drop your answer below. Like, share, and subscribe for more legendary rock stories. We're getting closer to number 1, and the next breakup involves a band whose story became one of rock's most bitter and complicated splits. Keep watching. The biggest breakups are still ahead. TOP, most shocking band breakups. At number 6, The Police. Imagine becoming one of the biggest bands on the planet, selling millions of records, creating songs that still fill radio stations decades later. And yet, behind the hits, the 3 members could barely stand being in the same room. At number 6 on our countdown of the most shocking band breakups, The Police. 3 musicians, 3 massive personalities. And one band that became too successful to ignore, but perhaps too tense to survive. When Sting, Andy Summers, and Stuart Copeland came together, the chemistry was explosive. The Police didn't sound like ordinary rock. They mixed punk energy with reggae, jazz, new wave, and powerful pop songwriting. Then came Outlandos d'Amour, then Regata de Blanc, then Zenyatta Mondata, and suddenly, the Police were everywhere. Songs like Roxanne, Message in a Bottle, Walking on the Moon, and Every Breath You Take turned them into international superstars. But here's the problem. The bigger the Police became, the more complicated the relationship became. Sting was the band's primary songwriter and increasingly became its most recognizable star. Stuart Copeland was an explosive drummer with a strong personality and his own ideas about the band's direction. Andy Summers brought an entirely different musical sensibility. They were brilliant musicians, but they didn't always agree, and the tension could be intense. Yet somehow, that friction helped create their sound. Then came Synchronicity in 1983. The album became a massive success. Every Breath You Take dominated the charts. The Police were at the absolute peak of their fame. And then, they stopped. After the Synchronicity tour, the band went on hiatus in 1984. There was no immediate farewell announcement saying, "This is the end." Instead, the members pursued other projects. Sting launched his solo career. And something remarkable happened. The Police never released another studio album together. For fans, it was shocking. How could a band this successful simply walk away? The answer wasn't one single argument. It was a combination of exhaustion, creative differences, enormous personalities, and the desire to pursue different directions. The Police had achieved extraordinary success in a remarkably short period. But perhaps that was part of the problem. They burned incredibly bright and then disappeared. Years later, they finally reunited for a major world tour in 2007-2008. Millions of fans got another chance to see them together. But even that reunion didn't permanently restart the band. And that leaves us with one fascinating question. What if the Police had stayed together through the 1980s? Would they have created another masterpiece? Would Sting's solo career have happened differently? Could the band's experimental side have pushed rock in an entirely new direction? We'll never know. Instead, the Police left behind a relatively small catalog with an enormous impact. And sometimes, that's what makes a breakup even more frustrating. the band didn't fail. They succeeded beyond almost anyone's expectations. They simply reached a point where continuing together wasn't worth the price. Now it's your turn. Should the Police have stayed together and recorded another album? Or did they break up at exactly the right time? And which Police song is your all-time favorite? Drop your answer below. Like, share, and subscribe for more legendary rock stories. We're halfway through the countdown, and the next breakup gets even more complicated. Keep watching. The biggest band splits are still coming. Top 10 most shocking band breakups. At number 5, the Eagles. Imagine a band at the absolute height of its success. Millions of records sold, stadiums packed, hit after hit, and then, instead of celebrating together, the members are fighting with each other on stage. One argument becomes legendary. The band finally collapses. At number 5 on our countdown of the most shocking band breakups, the Eagles. And their breakup became almost as famous as their music. By the late 1970s, the Eagles had become one of the biggest bands in America. Their blend of country, rock, and California songwriting produced enormous hits. Take It Easy, One of These Nights, New Kid in Town, and then came the album that turned them into superstars, Hotel California. But behind those beautiful harmonies was a band under enormous pressure. The Eagles were perfectionists. They could spend countless hours working on songs, arrangements, vocals, and performances. And as success grew, so did the tension. The personalities inside the band didn't always fit comfortably together. Then came the infamous Long Beach concert in 1980. During the show, tensions between Glenn Frey and Don Felder boiled over. Frey later recalled an argument in which the two exchanged threats while performing. Imagine that. You're standing on stage in front of thousands of fans, playing one of the biggest concerts of your career, while two band members are essentially telling each other, "This is the last time we're doing this together." And eventually, it was. After the 1980 tour, the Eagles broke up. The band members went their separate ways. Solo careers followed. And for years, the possibility of a reunion seemed almost impossible. Then, in 1994, something nobody expected happened. The Eagles reunited for Hell Freezes Over. And that title wasn't random. It was a sarcastic reference to Don Henley's famous comment that the band would get back together when hell freezes over. Well, apparently hell did freeze over. The reunion became enormously successful, but the story didn't end there. The Eagles continued performing for decades, with lineup changes along the way. And that makes their original breakup so fascinating. They weren't finished musically. They weren't out of ideas. They were simply reaching a point where the relationships inside the band had become incredibly difficult. And perhaps that's the hidden danger of enormous success. When millions of people depend on you to keep producing music, even small disagreements can become enormous. The Eagles showed the world that a band can create some of the most beautiful music imaginable, while the people making it are struggling to get along. And that's why their breakup remains one of rock's most memorable, because the music sounded effortless. The reality behind it, was anything but. Now I want your opinion. Was the Eagles' breakup inevitable, or could they have avoided it if the members had learned to work together? And which Eagles song belongs in your personal top 3? Drop your answer below. Like, share, and subscribe for more legendary rock stories. We're entering the top 4. And the next breakup involves a band whose internal conflict became one of the most famous battles in rock history. Don't go anywhere! The countdown is about to get explosive! Top 10 most shocking band breakups. At number 4, Oasis. Two brothers. One of the biggest rock bands on earth.
For all these years, nearly 20 years ago I first came here.
Millions of records sold, stadiums packed, and a relationship so explosive that eventually
This next song is called All the Back in Anger.
the band couldn't survive it. At number 4 on our countdown of the most shocking band breakups, Oasis. But this wasn't just a band breakup. It was a brother versus brother war that played out in front of the entire world. In the 1990s, Oasis didn't simply become successful. They became a cultural phenomenon. At the center were brothers Noel and Liam Gallagher. Noel was the songwriter. Liam was the unmistakable voice. Together, they created some of the defining songs of the Britpop era: Wonderwall, Don't Look Back in Anger, Champagne Supernova, and Definitely Maybe, and What's the Story Morning Glory, turned Oasis into one of the biggest rock bands of their generation. But there was one problem. The Gallaghers were brothers, and their relationship was notoriously volatile. Arguments, insults, walk-offs, public disagreements. The tension became part of the Oasis story. But fans kept coming back because when the brothers were together on stage, the music could be enormous. Then came 1996. At the famous MTV Unplugged performance, Liam famously didn't perform because of a reported sore throat, while Noel sang instead. It became another chapter in the Gallagher saga, and the tension continued. Lineups changed. Arguments continued, but Oasis kept producing music. Then came 2009. Oasis were scheduled to perform at the Rock en Seine festival in Paris. But just before the performance, everything collapsed. The show was canceled. Noel Gallagher announced that he had left Oasis. His statement was devastatingly simple. He could no longer continue working with Liam. And just like that, Oasis was over. For fans, it was almost impossible to believe. This wasn't a band that had faded away. They were still capable of selling huge numbers of records. They still had an enormous global audience. And yet the relationship between the two central figures had become too difficult to continue. But here's where the story gets even more interesting. Over the years, fans kept hoping for a reunion. Rumors appeared. Interviews sparked speculation. Every comment from Noel or Liam was analyzed. Could they put their differences aside? Could Oasis return? Then, years later, something happened that seemed almost impossible. Oasis announced a reunion tour for 2025. After more than a decade apart, the Gallagher brothers were finally preparing to share a stage again. For millions of fans, it was a dream come true. So Sally can But it also proved something. Sometimes the most powerful thing about a band isn't just the music. It's the relationship between the people creating it. Oasis became legendary, partly because of that explosive chemistry. The same personalities that created unforgettable music also helped destroy the band. And that's what makes their breakup so fascinating. Were Noel and Liam simply too different to work together? Or was that conflict exactly what made Oasis so powerful? Now it's your turn. Did Oasis have to break up, or could Noel and Liam have kept the original band together? And be honest, what's the greatest Oasis song ever recorded? Drop your answer below. Like, share, and subscribe for more legendary rock stories. We're down to the top 3, and the next breakup involves a band whose split was caused by a tragedy that changed rock history forever. Stay with me. The final 3 are huge. Top 10 Most Shocking Band Breakups. At number 3, Led Zeppelin. Imagine being one of the biggest rock bands on the planet. Millions of records sold out arenas. A sound powerful enough to change rock music forever. Then, without a farewell tour, without one final album, it's over. Not because the band stopped being successful, not because the audience disappeared, but because one devastating tragedy made continuing impossible. At number 3 on our countdown of the most shocking band breakups, Led Zeppelin. By the 1970s, Led Zeppelin weren't simply a rock band. They were a phenomenon. Robert Plant, Jimmy Page, John Paul Jones, John Bonham. Together, they created a sound that was enormous. Blues, hard rock, folk, and experimentation all pushed to the limit. Albums like Led Zeppelin 4 and Physical Graffiti became landmarks. And live,
I've been told a big leg woman ain't got no soul.
they were almost unstoppable. But in September 1980, tragedy struck. Led Zeppelin were preparing for a European tour. Then, on September 25th, drummer John Bonham died at the age of 32. His death devastated the band. Bonham wasn't simply the drummer. His explosive playing was one of the foundations of the Led Zeppelin sound. Take him away, and you didn't just lose a musician. You lost part of the band's identity.
But come my way.
The remaining members faced an impossible decision. Could Led Zeppelin continue without John Bonham? They ultimately decided they couldn't. On December 4th, 1980, Led Zeppelin announced that they were disbanding. Their statement made clear that they could not continue as they had before. And that's what makes this breakup so heartbreaking. There wasn't some massive argument. There wasn't a failed album. There wasn't a lack of fans. There was simply loss. For years, fans wondered what Led Zeppelin might have become if Bonham had lived. Would they have continued into the 1980s? Would their sound have evolved? Could they have remained one of the world's biggest touring bands? We'll never know. The members did reunite for special performances over the years, most famously at Live Aid in 1985, although Phil Collins played drums for that performance. Then came December 10th, 2007. Jimmy Page, Robert Plant, and John Paul Jones reunited with Bonham's son, Jason Bonham, for the legendary Celebration Day concert at London's O2 Arena. For one night, the Zeppelin sound returned. and fans were reminded of just how powerful that chemistry had been. But it was never a permanent reunion. Because perhaps Led Zeppelin understood something important. John Bonham couldn't simply be replaced. His absence was part of the band's history. And maybe that's why the original Led Zeppelin remains frozen in time. 4 musicians, a relatively short period at the very top, and a legacy that still towers over rock music. Their breakup wasn't caused by failure. It was caused by tragedy. And sometimes, that's the most shocking ending of all. Now I want to hear from the Zeppelin family. Do you think Led Zeppelin made the right decision by ending the band after Bonham's death? Or should they have continued with another drummer? And which Led Zeppelin song best captures the power of the original 4? Tell us below. Like, share, and subscribe for more legendary rock stories. We're down to the final 2, and the next breakup wasn't caused by tragedy. It was a battle over money, music, control, and one of rock's most complicated relationships. Don't go anywhere. The biggest breakup is still coming. Top 10 most shocking band breakups. At number 2, Pink Floyd. Imagine a band creating one of the greatest albums in rock history. Selling hundreds of millions of records, and then watching its members turn against each other over music, leadership, money, and control. One man wanted to take the band in his direction, the others wanted to keep it together, and eventually, Pink Floyd became a battlefield. At number 2 on our countdown of the most shocking band breakups, Pink Floyd. Pink Floyd's story was never simple. The band had already survived the departure of founding member Syd Barrett, whose creative brilliance and declining mental health had made his position in the group increasingly difficult. Then came the classic lineup: David Gilmour, Roger Waters, Richard Wright, Nick Mason. Together, they created some of the most ambitious music in rock history. The Dark Side of the Moon, Wish You Were Here, Animals, and then The Wall. But as Pink Floyd became bigger, Roger Waters increasingly took control of the band's creative direction. Waters wrote much of the material for The Wall and later the final cut. But tensions between Waters and the other members were growing. The biggest conflict was between Waters and guitarist David Gilmour. They had very different ideas about Pink Floyd's future. Was Pink Floyd primarily Roger Waters' vision? Or was it a band whose identity belonged equally to all 4 members? By the early 1980s, that question had become impossible to ignore. Then came 1985. Roger Waters announced that he was leaving Pink Floyd. Waters believed the band should effectively end with his departure, but Gilmour, Mason, and eventually Wright continued under the Pink Floyd name. And that's when the breakup became one of the most bitter disputes in rock history. Waters challenged the band's continued use of the name. The legal and personal battle became enormous. And suddenly, fans weren't simply arguing about songs. They were asking, who actually was Pink Floyd? Waters? Gilmour? Or all of them together? The irony is incredible. The band members were fighting over Pink Floyd, while Pink Floyd was still making successful music. The post-Waters album, A Momentary Lapse of Reason, arrived in 1987. Then came The Division Bell in 1994, and Pink Floyd continued filling enormous venues. But the relationship between Waters and the other members remained complicated. Then, in 2005, something extraordinary happened. Roger Waters, David Gilmour, Richard Wright, and Nick Mason reunited for Live 8. For one performance, the classic lineup stood together again. Fans around the world wondered, could this finally be the beginning of a permanent reunion? It wasn't. And after Richard Wright's death in 2008, the possibility became even more remote. Pink Floyd eventually returned with The Endless River in 2014, but the classic lineup was never restored. So what makes this breakup so shocking? The music survived, the name survived, the legacy survived, but the relationship between two of its most important creative forces never completely healed. And that's why Pink Floyd remains one of rock's greatest what-if stories. What if Waters and Gilmour had found a way to work together? What if the classic lineup had stayed together? What other masterpieces could they have created? We'll never know. Because sometimes, the hardest thing for a great band isn't creating the music, it's agreeing on who gets to control it. Now it's your turn. Who do you think best represents Pink Floyd? Roger Waters or David Gilmour? And here's the question that always starts a debate. Could Pink Floyd have remained together if both sides had compromised? Keep it respectful. There are passionate fans on both sides. Drop your answer below. Like, share, and subscribe for more legendary rock stories. We've reached number 2. Which means only one breakup remains. And trust me, the final one isn't just a breakup. It's the breakup that changed music forever. Stay with me. Number 1 is next.
The Beatles, bring 'em on!
Top 10 most shocking band breakups. At number 1, the Beatles. 4 young musicians changed popular music forever. They conquered Britain. They conquered America. They became the biggest band on earth. Then, at the height of their fame, the Beatles broke up. Not because the world stopped listening, not because they ran out of ideas, but because the 4 people who had created the phenomenon could no longer agree on what the Beatles should become. At number 1, the Beatles. By the late 1960s, the Beatles had already achieved what seemed impossible. Millions of records sold, worldwide tours, movies. Television appearances, and albums that completely transformed the possibilities of popular music. But success brought enormous pressure, and the relationship between the 4 Beatles was changing. John Lennon was becoming increasingly focused on his relationship with Yoko Ono and his own artistic direction. Paul McCartney was pushing the band to keep working and recording. George Harrison was frustrated that his songwriting contributions were often overshadowed by Lennon and McCartney. And Ringo Starr found himself caught between competing personalities. Then came the death of their manager Brian Epstein in 1967. The person who had helped guide the Beatles was suddenly gone. The band now had to manage itself, and the cracks became increasingly visible. During the recording of the White Album, tensions were rising. Then came the famous Let It Be sessions, arguments, creative disagreements, frustration, and eventually, the question nobody wanted to answer. Could the Beatles actually survive? They still created extraordinary music. Abbey Road became one of their greatest albums. But behind the scenes, the future of the band was becoming increasingly uncertain. In September 1969, John Lennon privately told the others that he was leaving the group. Paul McCartney later announced his own departure in April 1970. And suddenly, the Beatles were finished. For millions of fans, it was devastating. This wasn't just another band breaking up. It felt like the end of an era. And then came the arguments over business, finances, management, and control. The Beatles were no longer simply four musicians making records together. They were four individuals with separate careers, ambitions, relationships, and visions for the future. And perhaps that's why their breakup remains so fascinating. Because they didn't break up because they had stopped being brilliant. They broke up while they were still capable of creating incredible music. Imagine another Beatles album in the 1970s. Imagine Lennon and McCartney writing together again.
Thank you. Thank you very much, everybody, and good evening. How are you?
Imagine George Harrison's songwriting developing inside the group. Imagine what the four of them might have sounded like after discovering everything that happened in the late 60s. Would they have embraced heavier rock, funk, electronic music?
Same thing. I can't figure it. It was up.
Would they have changed music again? We'll never know. The Beatles left behind one of the greatest catalogs in music history. But they also left behind the ultimate rock question. What could have happened if they had stayed together?
Right, we like to sing another one off the same LP. This one's called All My...
And maybe that's why their breakup remains the most shocking of them all. Because the Beatles didn't simply end a band. They closed the door on an entire musical era. Now it's your turn.
Records, album, you see. Anyway, of course you can.
Was the Beatles' breakup inevitable, or could they have saved the band? And if you could bring them back for one final album, what would you call it?
All right.
Drop your answer below, and let's settle the debate together. If you love rock history, legendary bands, and the stories behind the music, like, share, and subscribe. And remember, the greatest bands don't always last forever, but the music does. Keep rocking.